Thank you. Thank you. Is that it? Is that a thing? Yes, probably. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate, and I am a proud member of the Dress team. And for the next 30 minutes, we'll focus on enhancing player experience through marketing analytics in CRM. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. But before we dive into that, before we move on to the main presentation, let me briefly introduce Dressed and myself. So, Dressed is a fashion styling game. We're a mobile game and a content platform that merges the creative worlds of luxury fashion, beauty, and the lifestyle. Players in the game, they can create their unique looks. They can submit them in various challenges available. We collaborate with many high fashion brands and superstars. Like for example, here you can see that we collaborated with the Kate Moss. And a few words about myself. I'm Kate. I'm the product marketing manager. I lead two teams, CRM team and the customer support team. My background is mainly consulting at the beginning. I worked for financial institutions. Later on, as my passion for startups grew, I moved to Lime and Tidal, where I started working with mobile apps, working on business analytics, working on app monetization and user at that point engagement. When I'm not working, you'll find me diving, that's me up there. You'll find me cooking or tasting wines. Okay, let's see what we have on the agenda. And we have 4 key points. The first one, CRM explained. So we'll try to understand what's the role of the CRM in the business organization. What are the goals that we try to reach? We'll try to understand as well what is the player life cycle. That's for the player experience. The second point. So we'll look at the CRM from the strategic point of view. The third point, enhancing the experience. So once we understand that what the player life cycle is, then we'll try to see what we can do to improve this experience. And the fourth one, last but not least, we'll try to answer the question whether or not we can utilize the CRM, the customer support expertise in our daily operations in CRM. So let's start with the first one, the CRM explained. Growth marketing team at Dress revolves around 2 teams. So there is the user acquisition team and the product marketing, and that's in line with the player flow. So user acquisition makes an effort to attract players to the game, and then once the app is installed, once the first session is started, we take over the player and we try to engage, retain, and monetize the player. How do we do it? We reach out to the player via different contact channels. So we utilize push notifications, in-app messages, slides, and content cards. There's one more thing that we're doing. Our messaging is personalized. What we aim to do is to deliver the message to the player that he really or she really cares about. There's another thing in terms of monetization addressed, and this is the product team that I have to mention. So this is the second arm of the communication to the player. So product team is also responsible for the communication. However, this is solely game-related communication. So what they send, what they show to the player are the pop-ups like, you leveled up, you got the gift box, you got the currency, or things like that. This is the message that is the same for the whole player base. Like at a certain point, each player will receive this notification, whereas our effort is to make it tailored to the player needs. Additional thing that justifies this this split that we have the UA obviously, but product marketing communication and product team communication is that I think you know that better than I do how expensive cost of the user acquisition is. So what we do actually, we actually care for those money. Let's say so. Here's the spend, and here we do not the money or the player to fade away. We literally like try to create a value for the player and show the value, of course, the value of the game. The next one. So we know what the CRM in organization. That's the next one point is the CRM player experience. So now we want to understand what it actually means. What is the player experience? What is the basic strategy that we have, the basic approach to segment the communication to the player? And this is the starting point for us to later on test, segment, optimize the content that we show to the player. So let's start with the small green pyramid. We have 4 sections here. We have onboarding, retention, re-engagement, and monetization at the top. Onboarding is the primary section that is received by each player. So we do have FTE. However, we notice that players get confused. They forget about things. They're not really familiar with the concept after some time. And we received many tickets on a customer support that what is this feature? What does it mean? I don't understand. How to do this? How to do that? So what do? We send an onboarding. We send educational messaging to our players so they are well onboarded, but also familiar with the concept. The second one, the retention piece, is about building an interest in the product. So this is a daily communication, and this one we want to spark the excitement. So those are the messages like there is a product update, there is a new feature, there is a new in-game live event, anything like that. There is a new brand coming in, anything like that. What can just like tie us to the player? Re-engagement. Re-engagement is dedicated to players who start churning. So the player plays, and in a day or two he's not playing and he's not coming back to the app. So this part actually is game neutral, meaning that this is some kind of game neutral, meaning that it's not related to any event in the game. It's kind of a message that says we miss you, broken heart, come back to us, something like that, right? So it's not related to anything happening in the app. I call it always as like something happening, so the campaign that is running in the background. We on a daily basis we do not care about that much as we do about the retention. And the top piece is monetization. So this is the store that we have in the game. We have a dedicated subpage where players can make an in-app purchase. We have time-limited offers. We have currency and some other packs available. Okay, so now we know how it looks like from the perspective, from that like theory. Now let's look how it looks like in practice. So we have the same pyramid, but as the use cases, we have onboarding, retention, re-engagement, monetization. So the first one is onboarding, and this is the content card. You can see that we have a dedicated inbox for the players where we can communicate with the player. There is a messages section, and this is the content card that tells the player what the unworn score is. So the players at some point we notice that they don't really understand that. So we've added that on top to our onboarding journey. The next two, retention and re-engagement, those are push notifications. And the retention one is a daily one. This is about the daily rewards. So the daily reward is a feature where player can collect free perks twice a day, and we remind players to do that. And the second one is the re-engagement. So as I said, this is like super game neutral. Like there is nothing particular that's happening in the app right now. And the last one is in monetization. We have in-app message. We utilize this channel as we've noticed that this one performs the best in terms of purchases. However, we also have the slide up. This is like small push notification coming from the above, but in the game, not outside the game, and it also performs as good as in-app message, maybe less worse. Okay, so we are like in general, we understand the concept now of what the CRM player lifecycle, player journey is. We know how it looks like in practice from the player perspective. And now let's look at actual use cases. So enhancing the experience. And let me start with actually introducing you to the slide structure, as they all will look the same. So we have the business need, and this is the issue, this is the problem that we notice that we need to tackle somehow. Then we have hypothesis, and that is the hypothesis that we define that probably would help us fix the issue. Later on, you'll notice the campaign. So this is actually a scheme here, but you'll notice push screenshots most probably, and the business impact. So what was the metric improvement? Okay, so let's dive into this one. So as I mentioned, like each player costs certain amount of money, and we notice that we have those lapsed players, and as I mentioned that this is the re-engagement part of the pyramid. We notice that those players are like the journey is somewhere there in the background, and we do not pay attention to that. Let's look at that. So we did, and we did the analysis, and we noticed that actually this campaign is not performing as effectively in the long run as we would like to. Like obviously you might think that people are churning, like that's normal for each app, like people play and people then leave the app, that's regular, right? However, there was a question for that we asked ourselves, like, do we want to do anything about that? Like, do we want to try, is there anything that we can do here? Obviously, like we are can do people. So yes, we did the competitive analysis, we did the analysis for non-gaming apps. And we've noticed that people, like players or users, receive the same message over and over again, meaning that if you play a game on day one, and you put the phone down, the next day you receive a notification. That's fine. You think like, okay, that's interesting notification. I will like pick up the phone and start playing. That's great. You put the phone down, the next day you receive again the same notification. And you're like, okay, I've seen that somewhere, but okay, let's give it a shot. You play, you put the phone down, and the third day you receive the same notification. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's not gonna work this time. Like, it's not attractive for me. And that's what happened. In the long run, we noticed that our communication doesn't work, and that's actually a common issue. So you can see that as an initial campaign. We look at the churn like this. Let's say that this is the campaign that sends a notification on a day one, and this campaign has a copy AAA. On each day, the user, the player, will receive the same notification. And what we've done, we've created like a matrix approach where actually there are 7 messages. So only at 8th time, the player will receive the same message, right? Once the GGG is there. That means that if we have a campaign, a user flow for the labs players, which is built out of 5 days, initial campaign had 5 messages. New approach, it's 35 messages. The numbers went crazy up, yes. The business impact, more sessions started, higher player stickiness, and higher completion rate in terms of challenges. And that was the one that I was mostly scared of, as we were linking to the homepage, not to any specific challenge. So it was actually the proactive decision of the player that they completed the challenge, and that's what happened. So that's brilliant. The next one, we have the app behavior. So as you remember from the beginning of the presentation, I told you that we are separate from the product. However, there are situations that where product needs help. And that was one of the situations. So the product team knocked on our doors and said, hey, like we have a situation over here, like we've done something and we need your support. So what we have in the app is the daily rewards. They were available at the homepage at first. However, product decided to move it to the store. And store is a sub page here. In store, you make purchases, right? What happened? The collection of the daily rewards dropped. People have the habit of like seeing the same thing in the same place, and now it disappeared. It was in store. So as you can imagine, the player satisfaction here as a third bullet decreased. Like we received many questions. Okay, so what happened? Like, did you remove the daily rewards? Do I have to pay for them now since they are in store? So what we've done, we obviously they didn't have to pay for that. What we've done, we created several campaigns that educated the people, that try to change the habit of their collecting the daily rewards from the homepage. And that took some time. However, on the first day, we noticed the increase of 20% in a collection rate. At some point, we stopped all the campaigns. You can see here only one message, but there were many of them. We stopped the campaign and we went to analyze the learnings and make some conclusions, and we just launched the follow-up campaigns for players who were not in the app for this specific period of time when this wide and broad communication was happening. And the second thing, we launched a communication again. We added on top to the onboarding a message with explanation of what the daily reward is, as people, obviously new players, don't know that such thing is, right? Interesting here, I added this one actually on purpose, as you can see the copy here that says, click here to claim your free daily reward. At first, this message didn't include the word free. You can imagine that adding a word free made a difference here. People really thought that they have to pay for that. So that's app behavior here. Preferences. So we are a styling app, and as all of you here, the same for our players. They have their preferences in terms of style, in terms of brands, in terms of patterns, colors, anything. And we know what they do in the app, and we want to, as I mentioned, personalize the messaging so they actually use our app and they stay with us. There are two projects here that are happening: dynamic content and player segmentation. So the dynamic content means item recommendation based on previously used content. And as you can see on the screenshot here, there is a message which says, how did you like item X? Maybe you want to try item Y. So the player used item X, and I see it in my database that the X was used. So probably he would like to use item Y, since I know that this item is within the same category, with the same segment, or within the same brand. This message is a nice personalized replacement for the message, "We miss you, broken heart, come back to us." Like this is like the likelihood that the player will click on the message is way higher with this one than with the basic one. And the second one is the player segmentation. So that's an example of a new brand coming into the game. So the new brand is Givenchy, and we can aggregate, as I said, like we can aggregate brands to a specific theme, let's say. So we picked three brands here which stand for a segment A, and we know that certain players like certain brands. So we won't send a notification to all the players saying, "Hey, there is a new brand Givenchy, maybe you want to play." We will send it only to this segment. And why? It's like, I think it's like with Instagram. So when you scroll down the Instagram and you see and you're totally into cosmetics, and out of nowhere you see electric drill ad, you're like, what is that? I'm not into that. I'm not gonna click on that. This is like a waste of time and the money. So that's why we use actually I think like in-depth segmentation. And the next one, the last one, are the in-app purchases. um, so as I said, we have a store in the game where you can purchase the currencies, time limited offers, some items, and we have many. This is the top of the pyramid. We have many flows for app monetization, and one of the conversions is failed and also cancelled in-app purchase. And obviously, enough like fails like happens, but still, I find it as a lost revenue for the company. And also, it gives a bad impression of the user experience. So it's a difference when player actually cancel the transaction cautiously, and it's a different thing when actually like there's a technical issue. Like it's a very bad experience. So what we've done, we've defined the hypothesis that said nurturing failed cancelled in-app purchases leads to increased in-app purchases. We launched a message which was triggered by failed transaction. It was sent like after a couple hours. It said like, you left something in the cart, maybe you want to come back and finalize the transaction. As a result, you can see that 30% of people who failed initially, they finalized the purchase. 15% of people who canceled like cautiously the transaction, they completed the purchase. Out of the whole group, less than 6% of people failed again. We got more visits to the store, and there was no negative impact on the player satisfaction so far. And I said so far, and that was one of the risks that I noticed, as sometimes games or apps in general tend to be pushy with the monetization. We don't want to have this impression that people are like, "Oh, you only like want our money" or something like that. That didn't happen here. Um, okay. And the last bit, actually, utilizing customer support. So how do we use the customer support? And if we use the customer support data, as I said, I lead two teams, CRM team and the customer support team. And obviously, as I analyze data from the customer support, I notice the space that like there are some issues, there are some things that needs to be addressed, and that's what we're doing. First step, we have the player feedback. We receive it via three channels: email, live chat, which is in the app, and App Store reviews. We categorize them into three sections: general feedback, those are like compliments, let's say. Game feedback, this is the one that is very, very relevant for us. And issues, like small issues that can be fixed pretty quickly by our agents. We deep dive into those game feedback, and we split them. One part goes to product team, second part goes to the CRM team. So for example, we can have an issue like, how do I submit? So I said that people can create the unique look in the challenges and then submit the look. And people, like players, don't know how to submit a look. Like there's a golden button which says submit in the app, however, it's still like is an issue and a serious issue. So what happened? I took that on the CRM team part, and we added additional communication in our flow to our onboarding, so people actually like get more familiar with the, with the red box, like there is a button that says submit. But also that feedback went to the product team, like there is an issue, people don't know how to do that. We should be clearer about that. So that's a short one. And the takeaways. So we looked at the player centricity in a data-driven marketing. Like all the things that you're doing are aimed to show the player, show things to the player that they want to see. And we looked at the CRM strategy is crucial or are crucial for successful player retention, monetization, and engagement. That was based on 4 use cases: player perspective, so the case with the various copies; app behavior, the homepage feature move to the store feature; preferences, that's a daily content, dynamic content, and segmentation; and in-app purchases as a supporting communication for the failed or cancelled transactions. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katarzyna. Katarina?
Yeah, Katarzyna,
Kate,
but Kate, yes.
yes, thank you so much. Do we have some questions? Yeah.
Yes, we have like via the flow, like user flow. There is one pop-up which says like, "Hey, do you wanna be do you want to like get the notifications from us, like be in line with everything what's happening, like new brands and stuff?" And there is one in-app message, I believe.
Perfect. And there is another question popping up. Which tools do you recommend to use for CRM?
Okay, so I always in gaming, not in gaming always, I always used Brace. So I can recommend only this one actually. I use different tools for mails. However, still from my perspective in terms of UI, it's Brace.
To the point. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, maybe one more question because we have time or...
Okay, catch me in a coffee break.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much once again.